is a live-in relationship is not socially accepted, as the privilege is only associated with the marriage. Most of the couples prefer this arrangement as this is a way to test the compatibility. Both have their own set of advantages and disadvantages. Thus, it is
What's happening?
Yeah, one moment, please. Problem with my network. Now,
Everyone's network is
so sorry for this another interruption. So there is social validation that has its own appeal and satisfaction. However, live-in relationships are the new and ongoing trends among the youth, and that gives them the freedom to live with their partners without any pressure of arranged marriages. Both of these socially constructed institutions of love and relationships have their pros and cons. In context of the Indian society, living with someone before marriage is still treated as a taboo, especially in a man-woman relationship. It corresponds to the idea of virginity, especially of women, which is considered violated if and when she engages in a physical relationship with a man before her marriage. She is then seen as someone impure or unholy, which is a traditional thought but widely accepted. This is why a live-in relationship is highly criticized by the society. In contrast to this, a section of the youth may not agree with what the conservative side of the society has to say. They feel that live-in relationship gives them the sense of freedom as well as the feeling of a conjugal life without the restrictions posed by the institutions of marriage. In a live-in relationship, one can live or stay whenever he or she feels things are not working out. But marriages can take a toll as they meant to be together for lifetime, or in the Indian context, for 7 lifetimes. Also, the legality involving a marriage makes it a difficult and time-consuming process to dissolve it or seek a divorce. Marriages are said to be made in heaven, and this is what the majority of the people believe. Subconsciously, this idea is fixed in the minds of people, and knowingly or unknowingly, the couples in the marital relationship work hard to make their relationship last for a long time and sometimes until death does them apart. Therefore, marriage are a more stable form of a relationship. In contradiction, a live-in can be too liberating at times. With no restriction, there are more possibility of instability and insecurity. So basically, whether the marriage should be mandatory or optional, we will be discussing this in our next 1.5 hours. And we have a very elite, knowledgeable, experienced, and those who are leaders, thought leaders in this particular field, the marriage, mandatory or optional, our panelists are. I would like to invite my first panelist guest, Dr. Rajiv Anand. Dr. Rajiv Anand is a senior psychiatrist and marriage counselor. Dr. Rajiv Anand passed his MBBS in 1976 and did MD in psychiatry in 1980 from King's George Medical College, Lucknow. He opted to serve his country when it was very common to settle abroad for brighter future. He has been serving society with his base in Mumbai. He has clients all over India as well as in Mumbai, as well as in many other countries. He was honored with Lifetime Achievement Award by AMA. He has conducted more than 3,000 workshops for different groups and companies with audience size of 10 to 800. His television program on various channels have been widely appreciated for his forthright and practical approach. He is leading in the field of mental and emotional well-being for 41 years. He was president of IMA for 2 times. He was interviewed in several talk shows domestically and internationally. Welcome, Dr. Rajiv Anand, on our show. Dr. Rajiv Anand, today's topic is marriage, mandatory or optional. And you being a senior psychiatrist and marriage counselor, I'm sure you are the authority to speak about this. So we would like to know your...
Sheena?
Shall I start? Am I audible? Somebody would wave back at me because Mr. Lal's video has gone away. And should I start, Mr. Lal, in case if you can catch me? I think to save time, I can start. Sunita, am I audible? Your voice is not coming.
I was on mute.
Okay. Fine.
You're audible.
Fine. Good morning, Mr. Lal, and welcome Kisle Bora and Dr. Sunita Banerjee and Samindra Samant.
Hello. Good morning.
I hope I'm audible. And it's very interesting and very amusing that today, 20th of Jan 2022, we are talking about marriage, mandatory or optional. I'm sure 10 years from now, possibly we may have a webinar on the topic, living, mandatory or optional. Because somewhere a new trend has begun, many youngsters have begun wondering why to live. What's the point in living? As if they have bought the life from a shelf in a department store, as if they have a right over their life to live or not to live, and they can throw it away. So many youngsters, totally unbelievable to many of us who are in our late age. It sounds incredible that young people are thinking this is about death and about suicide at the age of teens. It looks more ridiculous when sensible people, grown-up people, educated people, decent people, apparently sound-minded people, these days are wondering whether to marry or not to marry. Mr. Lal will say, I'm an authority on marriage. I refuse to accept it because the marriage which I understood in my early days, formative years, that were a different concept of marriage than the marriage now. And every day, my belief in the institution of marriage is shaken by certain people, not all. Like one of the recent examples is a couple came who were living together for 7 years, 7 years. And 16th day of the marriage, they wanted to go for divorce. And the reason was we are not compatible. We are not meant for each other. We are opposite to each other. We can't stand each other and we can't stay together. Well, they have lived together 7 years and they wanted divorce. Before that, I had also encountered a lady, a chartered accountant, got married on Sunday. And Thursday evening, she forced an appointment, accompanied by her sister and brother-in-law, who were all decent, educated people, professional. And she wanted divorce, 4th day of their marriage. And she was regretting that she didn't find the husband as she had expected. Now, what is happening in the scene of marriage? Are we thinking that we have something in our hand, in our wallet, we can go and buy something of our choice, and if the thing what we get thing is not of our choice, we can return it, or we can weigh pros and cons, and we can read the reviews. Something very funny approach is happening about the marriage. I find it amusing. Why marry? People ask these days because they are being influenced by every day you open newspaper, including today, and Bombay Time tell you about who is getting married. Nobody writes about the age. I'm sure Dr. Sunita has a lot of celebrities as her clients. Many of these people are getting married post 35, post 40, and they have lived almost 20 years or more than that of their adult life. God knows how and with whom and how much and what not. I'm not mentioning about the physical aspect of marriage, which Mr. Lal brought in the beginning. I'm mentioning about the emotional aspect. In fact, I would rather lay less emphasis on the physical aspect than on the emotional aspect. If people have lived 20 years before marriage with X or Y or Z or A or B or C, what is left about the emotions? I have a client who is just 27, and I know her for the last 9 years, ever since she was 18. And she has had 7 relationships. She has had 6 boyfriends and 1 husband and 1 divorce between her age of 18 and 27. Each of the relationships will lasted 1.5 years. I look at her life and I wonder whether more and more people these days are finding that they are incapable of entering into a healthy relationship called marriage. Are we gradually turning into a very odd and very not so pleasant analogy of, are we turning into the guest house or a hotel? People can come and stay in our life for as long as they want, and they can pay the price for staying in our life emotionally and whatever else not. And then they can leave when it's not convenient, creating the space for someone else to walk into. Isn't it that many people are finding it's better to have a boyfriend number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and have a mutual contact renewable every year or every 2 years rather than having a husband who would expect a lot of responsibility? Are we pushing ourselves more towards celebrities who may have different compulsions, whether in the advertising industry or the film industry? They may have different compulsion, maybe professional compulsion. I may know less about it, that they have to delay their marriage, or they have to get married in 40s, or they are not fascinated with the early marriage because it may come in the way of their profession, which many girls admirably are also waking up to the reality that it's better to get married earlier rather than keep on delaying it. Yet there are a sizable number of celebrities in all fields, from here to Hollywood, who delay their marriage. Are we going to decide how they will guide our life, married life? As such, we have handed over to them what we eat and what we dress and how we live the rest of life is the most intimate relationship of our life called marriage. The intricacies of it to be decided by them, and do we trust them to be all knowledgeable, very experienced, very wise in this matter? And do we trust them that they have really sound experience to guide us on this matter? I'm afraid many of the people who are listening to this program, including all my panelists, co-panelists over here, Samitra Shraman, experienced lady counselor, Dr. Sunita Banerjee, in the field for the last 30 years, and Isli, very well-known artists, and Mr. Goel, who have conducted for the last 2 years, more than about 700 programs. So, are we ready to believe that each and every part of our personal life to be determined, to be dictated by these people who are hollow? Maybe some people may not like my comment of hollow. Had they not been hollow, they would not have made their life as shallow and as easy to enter by anybody and as easy to exit by anybody. Marriage is much more than what Mr. Lal floated the idea about physical closeness. No. Marriage is much more than physical proximity and access to each other's body and celebrate physically. No. Marriage is much more pious. In fact, if I look at it from a slightly different perspective, if one is not married, one can't give the best out of her or him. If one is not married, imagine an analogy. This is for my lay viewers. I often say that a single wheel, how far it can go? Single wheel, how far it can go? 5 meters, it will fall down. Well, the wheel is aligned with another wheel, and if it is part of a train, part of a bus, part of a truck, part of a car, it can go thousands of miles. Well, single wheel alone would fall aside beyond 5 meters. What give power? to go 5,000 meters, from 5 meters to 5,000 meters, 5,000 kilometers for me to Assam it can go. What gives us power? The counterbalancing. Each wheel, which on its own can't go far, well aligned with the other wheel, empower the other wheel. And so do the other wheel, which itself can't go far, well aligned with the first wheel, empowers it and takes it far to the 5,000 kilometers. So we alone are not that powerful as with someone whom we care for. And if in this world made of billions of people, we can't alloy, or we can't align, or we can't mix, or we can't sort out our differences with one person, physically, emotionally, spiritually, intellectually, with one person with whom I can surrender ourselves totally, that you and me are one. You and me are one. Least differences. Bound to have differences. We have a separate body. We have different kind of needs. We have different mind. We have different ego structure. We have come back from different background. We have had many experiences, grown up from the childhood. Most of the experiences have not been sorted out together. We have a huge backlog of unaddressed, unresolved experiences. Each one of us is working within, struggling within to straighten out many complexes. Agreed. But the relationship called marriage is meant for helping each other grow out of it. So if I can summarize my first part of talk, marriage is not celebration at the physical level, what many people think popularly it is. No, it is not. Marriage is learning together for a huge time, growing together. I'm sure Samudra, being a counselor, would agree with me. Learning together for a lot of time. Learning together means walking together. If any one of us have to go together in the forest, 2, 3, 4 hours easily would pass by and watching the scene, hearing the birds' voices. So much is there in the life. Learning together, then growing together, then understanding together, and then sharing a lot with each other. Then come the option of loving each other. Loving each other, and then come the question about making love with each other. That may be the fifth session. But somehow most of us, self-appointed expert in our life, we begin with making love. We begin exploring each other's physical differences. We begin asking other person to submit to me and her entire body, and me to her, and we call it fine. We are right because we are adults. We are not realizing it. Most such marriages are collapsing. So more and more people are losing fascination for the marriage, driven by the serials, driven by various programs on the electronic media. People are getting dissuaded from marriage. What are they left? Why we should get married? Married people fight with each other. Married people don't respect each other. Married people don't have much depth in the relationship. Why should we get married? Why we should not enjoy our freedom? A very bad trend is beginning. Many earning women having good salary are getting unduly and mistakenly empowered that having a good salary, having a pay packet would suffice for them to live on their own. And they can prevent getting into marriage and they can get on. I have a client based in Delhi. Out of 10 of her friends, 8 are divorcee. So this client of mine, who is a doctor by herself, is contemplating divorce because 8 of her friends are divorcee and she thinks no great deal. Why to marry? I have another client whose mother keep on pestering her every day. Why you are married? Leave your marriage. Mother is staying in a different state, has had a bad marriage, has had an unfulfilled life. She keep on badgering her every day. Why you are stuck in a bad marriage? Leave the marriage, come out of it. You'll be happier. I don't know why people are making other people influence their life experiences based on one's past not so good experience. What right do I have to influence your mind? You take this and you don't take this. But then people are doing it, others are doing it, friends are doing it, and people are allowing it to be done by others without looking into what is their specific case, what are their choices, what are their options. So I would speak in my second round, but in this round, let me say it aloud. The marriage is mandatory for every young person, for every person, boy or a girl, mandatory. If people ask why, then I would say then you will have to remain at a very lower level of quality of life. If you want to raise yourself higher in your consciousness, if you want to rise yourself higher in your human evolution, if you want to give your best to the society, you want to give to the best to the world, which has given you best wherever we are, wherever each one of us is. We haven't got it as a birthright from somewhere. We haven't bought it. We got it. We haven't bought it. We got it. Courtesy our parents, courtesy the society, courtesy the institution, which gave us training. We owe it back to the society, to the country. And we, as an individual, can give less than as a family, than as a married couple. So marriage is mandatory. There is no second thought about it. There's nothing like optional. If marriage would become optional, then being a good person would become optional. Then breathing would become optional. Living life would become optional. How far we shall go? As we have already made our life, food is optional now. We won't take this. We won't take vegan diet. We won't take milk. We won't take this. Many people have their own different kind of ideas, and good luck to them. Our fathers and great grandfathers, all of them, they have lived wonderful life by and large, except when the new modern generation diseases came out, and then we begin worrying about this and that, what to eat, what not to eat. Well, they have been eating almost everything, ghee and milk, and they were happier. Now we, the super intelligent people, have applied this extra intelligence in our day-to-day life and making a mess for us as well as for others. So all young viewers, whichever part of the country they are listening to, I understand 7-8 states as well as abroad, this program is beamed, and commendable part on the part of organizer, that wherever people are listening to this program, no second thought about marriage. You don't know what you are going to lose. You don't know what you are going to miss. You don't know what you're going to lose out on the experiences of being in the married life. Yes, plus and minus are always there, but no second thought about marriage is mandatory or optional. There is no option about marriage. So I am handing over to Mr. Lal, and would look forward to the second round.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Dr. Rajiv Anand, for giving views. And Dr. Rajiv Anand is very, very strongly saying mandatory, marriage is mandatory. And he says it's not only a physical thing, it's an emotional thing. You have to give back to the society, and many things which he has mentioned with his own experience. He has mentioned how his clients, and he shared all the experiences. I need not to repeat that. Thank you very much, Dr. Rajivanan. Definitely, when I will come in the next round, I will ask some difficult question on this, which you have mentioned about that, about the mandatory marriage. We have to examine in all the skills today. So thank you very much. Now, I would like to invite my next panelist guest, and she is Dr. Sunita Banerjee. Dr. Sunita Banerjee is a renowned anti-aging and family physician at Mumbai. She received her MBBS DGO degree from the Armed Forces Medical College in 1982. Emerging from her studies, she started a successful family medicine practice in Mumbai in 1989. About 15 years ago, Dr. Sunita received extensive training and aesthetics in London. Upon her return, she started Health Statistics, a clinic that focuses on today's major medical problems related to genetic testing, lifestyle, beauty, health, and aging. Dr. Sunita has been attending anti-aging conferences worldwide. She has lectured in Bangkok for many years and also in Malaysia, Bali, and in India on topics related to anti-aging medicine. Her focus is on aesthetics and BHRT, bioidentical hormone replacement therapy. Her other main focus is on weight loss and obesity. Welcome, Dr. Sunita Banerjee, on our show. Dr. Sunita Banerjee, you have heard what Dr. Rajiv Anand said, and Dr. Rajiv Anand is advocating very, very strongly about the mandatory marriage. We would like to know your views on marriage, mandatory or optional. Dr. Sunita Banerjee, please.
Okay, I've heard very closely what Dr. Rajiv said. Maybe we belong to that old school. That is a possibility that we might agree that marriage is mandatory. But let me put the arguments for both, and then maybe the audience can decide. So when the French poet and philosopher first coined the proverb, one man's meat is another man's poison, I'm sure he wasn't thinking of marriage. But for me, I think there is no better way to describe what marriage is. It could be a beautiful experience for someone, and it could be an extremely toxic experience for somebody else. So this depends on various factors, which I would like to talk about. Now, before I say that, after treating thousands of patients, I have realized, and we all know, that stress is a very important part in causing chronic diseases that we see around us. And stress, the most important cause of stress, when I go deeper into a patient's history, is because he or she is trapped in an unhappy marriage. So it's very important that if we need to heal, we need to get rid of the stress and therefore look at a marriage, whether you are in an unhappy marriage. And if you're planning to get married and not planning to get married, you have to take a decision based on certain factors. Now, marriages, we all know, has been around for centuries, more than 2000 BC it's been there. And it has lasted. The very fact that it's lasted across the globe, across cultures, is because obviously it has something it brings to the table, right? It's only in the last few years, I would say last 15, 20 years, where the decline, we can see there is a decline in the marriage rate. In fact, in India, the rate has gone down in the last 10 years by 10%, which is there. So we can't say that marriage is a dying institution, but definitely the rate of marriage has come down. And this is because of the way we've started thinking, which the millennials have started thinking, the next Gen Z has started thinking. But before I talk about that, let me define what I think marriage is. If I were to use one word for it, I would say compromise. Can we compromise? We have to realize our own nature before we decide whether marriage is for us or not for us. Our personality, our needs, our beliefs, that is what should make the decision for us. Are we the kind who are kind, sharing, want a partner in our life, want to walk the distance with the partner, want to share every aspect of our life with the partner? We have the same value system, we enjoy doing the same things together, maybe music or whatever, watch theater or whatever. So whatever, if we are that kind of a person, and definitely if we want children, then for us, we should be thinking along the lines of wanting to get married. Because marriage has many benefits. It brings stability, security, and companionship to all of us, yes, as we can see. And the other benefits, of course, on the physical, social, emotional level also, it fulfills us. And children get a social acceptance. So if you take all these things into consideration, then marriage is a very important part of our life. As they say, birth, death, and marriage, that's the third most important. But to be married is not easy. Marriage requires constant work at it. People think that, okay, this is what I want from a marriage. But we always have to take a step back and see, what are we willing to give for marriage? Only then can a marriage work. To me, a marriage is like a plant. You have to keep watering it. If you just keep looking at it and saying, no, it's all okay, everything's okay. No, it doesn't work like that. You have to keep putting into it. Only then will it bloom and give you flowers and fruits and, take you to another level, as Dr. Anand said. It can take you to that level. But if you just leave it alone and leave it, it'll just wither away like a plant. You have to infuse it. You have to infuse it with a lot of energy and a lot of work. So marriage is not for the faint-hearted. Definitely not, especially today. Okay, in the olden days, it was different. The roles were defined. Man had to do the earning. The woman had to look after the house. And so everything was very clear-cut. But today, women are empowered. And I say women empowerment is the single most factor which is causing people to consider whether to get married or not, and which is responsible for the decline in the marriage rate. Yeah, so the purpose of marriage we shouldn't ever forget, and that is to bring out the best in the other. It has to be so selfless. We have to allow the other person to fly too. We have to give them the wings by giving them the roots. Then only a marriage can work. Now, if I look on the flip side, there are a lot of people who do not want to get married. Okay, some believe that marriage is not for them. And they just feel that it's for the community, but not for the individual. And there's nothing wrong with that, because see, the most important thing is to realize what you believe in. There's no point in doing something that you don't believe in. Just because society puts pressure on you and says you have to get married, this is the age you need to get married. Now, this puts so much pressure that you can't think straight and you go into a marriage. And that's when it calls for disaster. I mean, if you've taken a step backwards and realized, who are you? What are you? Is that what you want? Are you capable of being faithful to one person throughout? Is that what the person you are? You know, can you be loyal? Can you share? Do you want children? I mean, can you adjust? So if you are all that, then, and if you're not all that, then I don't think you should even think of going there, because then you create a big disaster. And to be in an unhappy marriage, I don't think there's anything worse than to be in an unhappy marriage. Okay, so I just feel that strongly about that you take your time. These days, you can get married late. There's so many ways of having children. You can freeze your eggs. There's so many different, ways. There's no compulsion that this is the age that you get married. Thank God, age limit has gone up to 21 now. So, that's going to give more time for people to think and get into it. It's you have to be really sensible and get into it. And there are so many people today who are maybe gays and lesbians, etc., who do not want to get married, yet because of social pressure, they are forced to get married, and they cause disasters, not only for themselves, for the people they get married to, for their entire families, So I say that people who go into marriage with reasons just to escape from their home, or because this is the age and they should get married, I think they should take a step back and take a call, because to get married and be unhappily married is worse than not being married at all. And then to bring children into the world and create more problems for them is worse. So one has to realize one's nature and what one can bring to the table. It's not only what the other person can bring to the table, but what can you bring to the table? And the social pressure is something that one should completely not allow themselves to be influenced by. Because marriage is, I feel that people, have just taken marriage for granted. No, I think they need to think very hard whether they are the kinds to get married and whether they will be able to take it forward. Because then to go in for a divorce and all causes much more of mental trauma than anything else, not only for themselves, for the children. So what is the future generation we're going to bring in? So if you are not the kind and you don't believe in it and you believe in only yourself, that's fine. That's perfectly okay. Realize it and don't go into a marriage and make a disaster. You need to think well before you go into it. Okay, so I think, this is what I feel is happening. And I think one should know themselves very well before you make this very important decision in your life. It's okay. You don't want to marry, it's okay. Know your reasons, but don't go into it because somebody pushes you, because society pushes you, because you're a certain age, because now you should get married, you lose out on time, because you need to have children. That causes more disaster. That is what I just feel. And so I feel that marriage is something which is very personal, though I'm in favor of it. I have been married once and been unhappy, and then I've married again, and I'm very happy. So it just depends on how you start looking at, what is your expectation. But you need to know that you need to put in equally, if not more, if you want anything to last. And if you do it, well, you can have a beautiful life together. You can walk into the sunset together. And I think marriage can be quite a wonderful experience.
Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Banerjee. Marriage is a wonderful experience. Although she said that she is in favor of marriage, but she has put a caveat, and she says that what Dr. Rajiv Anand has mentioned, and she says we all are of that old time philosophy thing that we feel that the marriage is mandatory, but if you are marrying and if you are not happy to marry because you are marrying because of somebody is pushing you and tomorrow it will be a disaster, then don't go for marriage, because that is more harmful to marry if if it is not a successful marriage, and especially when you are bringing the children on this earth. So she is of that view, because now time has changed. You can take your own time. Don't consider your age, because the age nowadays people are marrying quite late also. Think twice. Think that whether you are suitable for marriage or not, whether you are capable or compatible, and you will be able to adjust yourself, then only marry. Otherwise, if you will marry and tomorrow it will be a disaster. So according to her, don't marry, but she is in favor of marriage. So she has given a balanced view, and she says that viewers have to decide. So thank you very much, Dr. Banerjee, for giving your views. I would like to invite my next panelist guest, and she is Miss Samindara Sawant. Ms. Sawant is a renowned psychologist and therapist at Mumbai. She is the founder director of Disha Counseling Center. She is a psychologist at Mera Man Foundation. She is a regression therapist, transformational growth therapist, RECBT practitioner, author, chartered psychologist of British Psychological Society. Ms. Samindra Sawant specializes in psychodiagnostics and clinical assessments and has considerable experience in child, adolescents, marriage, as well as family psychotherapy. Ms. Sawant has extensive experience in conducting workshops and training, and has worked with various populations like students, parents, employees, teachers, and so forth. She is author of 2 books on mental health. Welcome, Ms. Samindra Sawant on our show. Ms. Sawant, you have heard Dr. Rajiv Anand as well as Dr. Sunita Banerjee. Both are in favor of marriage, but Dr. Rajiv Anand says mandatory. Dr. Sunita Banerjee says optional, means marriage is preferable, but you have to decide yourself, then only marry. It should not be disaster. So both have given their views. We would like to know your views now on this very, very important and relevant topic, that is marriage, mandatory or optional. Ms. Samindara Sawant, please.
Thank you, Mr. Goel. And it's been extremely enlightening to hear the views of both Dr. Anand and Dr. Banerjee. And my thoughts are going to evolve around the same lines. So I think gone are the days or the times when it was believed that marriages are made in heaven. As we've all experienced, today's youngsters believe in creating their own happiness. And this holds true for intimate relationships as well. With each generation, we have seen the institution of marriage undergo changes, evolve and mature, and take many, many forms. Conventionally, the way marriage was created, it was 2 people of the opposite sex creating a life together with the blessings of elders and society. Today, we see couples in many formats. Yes, in our country, many couples are still more comfortable with the conventional marriage format, yet more and more couples we do see are leaning towards live-in relationships, towards what they call as open marriages, or simply co-parenting partnerships. We come together to co-parent children, but other than that, we live our independent lives. We have same-sex marriages, or many simply choosing a happily single life. Right? So we're seeing a lot of different ways in which people are coming together. And that brings us really to a key question that you have tried to get us all to respond to, in terms of how important is really marriage in life. Has it become an obsolete institution, simply a dated structure that no longer has place in modern society? That's what a lot of youngsters today believe. Or is it still one of the cornerstones of family and social well-being, which is what most of us professionals do seem to still believe? And there could be many, many perspectives to it. You ask any youngster and they will tell you marriage is merely a formality. A strong relationship, a strong partnership is what is more important. You ask any parent, of course, they will tell you they want to see their kids married and within quotes settled, right? You speak to different professionals, and anthropologists will tell you marriage is society's way of ensuring procreation and satisfaction of sexual urges in a civilized way. Psychologists will tell you a different view. So I'm going to try and give you perspective from the psychological and emotional point of view here. And here I would like to quote a lot of developmental psychology research that has gone on over the years, which says that as human beings, each of us goes through certain stages in life. right from birth through childhood, adolescence, adulthood, and eventually old age, we pass through a series of ages and stages. And as famous psychologist, developmental psychologist Eric Erikson has said, in each stage, we have to master certain things. Forming intimate relationships also is one such skill that we eventually learn to master. Usually, by the time most of us reach late adolescence or young adulthood, we are emotionally and psychologically ready to connect with another person at a deep and intimate level and move on to what has so far been the next logical step in the sequence, marriage and creating a family. So, in short, what this means is that creating intimate connections with another person is perhaps a deeply embedded human need. And marriage has been for centuries the society's approved way of meeting this need. Yet, the institution of marriage per se is a structure, a format that more and more couples today feel is no longer necessary for them to meet this need. The youth of today, in my clinical practice, when I work with couples who are considering being together or who are married already, most of them feel that they don't need the stamp of marriage to prove their commitment or togetherness. As a mental health professional, my view is that yes, having a significant other in your life, someone you feel is your person, is certainly a key need for many, if not most of us. As the eminent psychologist Susan David has recently put it, the human brain is wired for connection. Whether we choose to follow the conventional path and get married to this person to whom we feel connected is entirely a personal choice. What I have seen is that even today, most Indian couples do look for and seek the permanence and stability that marriage brings into romantic relationships. Most of them look forward to culminating the relationship in marriage. What has changed, however, are the expectations. As Dr. Sunita has rightly said, the willingness to show patience and tolerance towards each other's failings and shortcomings, and most importantly, how partners deal with disappointments, betrayals, letdowns that are inevitable when two imperfect human beings come together. As long as it's the couple's choice whether to culminate their relationship in a marriage or not is more or less a personal choice. So, in short, my view is yes, connection and togetherness is certainly mandatory. Marriage, however, is a concept. It is an idea. It is a vision. It is up to each couple to create their own version of this idea, to adapt it, to personalize it to their idea of togetherness. What is important is that each person, each partner in the couple has equal space, has equal freedom of expression, and equal opportunity to grow in the relationship as well as individually. What is not okay is for individuals to feel pressured, coerced, or manipulated into marriage for the sake of marriage. That for sure serves no purpose. Getting married to someone who's incompatible or staying married to somebody who you later find out is unsuitable or incompatible only creates personal and familial unhappiness. And in fact, we have seen that it can lead to intergenerational traumas because unhappy marriages create unhappy individuals and beget unhappy children in unhappy homes. What is important is for you to have clarity on your contribution to the success and failure of the relationship, the role you play, and taking ownership for this role and contribution. Beyond that, whether you choose to call it a marriage or whether you choose to be together, I would say is a personal choice and a decision.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much, Ms. Sawant. And Ms. Sawant has clearly mentioned that it's your personal choice whether you want to be in the marriage or get together or to live together. This all depends, because she says that if you are marrying someone and if you are not compatible to him or her, then it is going to not only create a problem for you, but it will be for the intergenerational problem. And she says that it is better that we must assess and see to it that we are marrying to a compatible partner. Thank you very much, Ms. Sawant, for your views. Now, I would like to invite my next panelist guest, and he's Mr. Kisale Vora. Mr. Vora is a visual storyteller. He is a graduate from Sir J.J. School of Art and practices multidisciplinary art forms like painting, sculpture, installation art, and conceptual art. He started his career in advertising. From there, he moved into spatial art, working with many hospitality companies, creating art and environments for their discotheques and specialty restaurants to connect to youth through his art. From there, he moved into a successful career in visual merchandise, wherein he could utilize his knowledge of advertising and spatial art. At present, he is a full-time fine artist. His works are introspective as well as reflective. He aims to start a dialogue with society, thus giving back to society via the medium of art. He is also an artist, mentoring a limited number of 4 to 6 students at a time. He has participated in the Kala Ghoda Art Festival, showed at various galleries in group shows, worked with corporates to create commissioned art for their spaces, and had also pioneered the street art movement in Mumbai way back in the 90s. He is also at the helm of the HEAL project, which he initiated in 2017. It's an art endeavor that is aimed at creating awareness and empathy for the sorry state of our urban trees. It is one of a kind art movement that has gone international. Installations for the project have been done in many cities of India and also in the Gulf and other neighboring countries, with outreach program involving art students and school children. He lives and breathes art. Welcome, Mr. Vora, on our show. Mr. Vora, first of all, I would like to, I want you to turn your mobile in a horizontal position.
Okay.
Because yes, so people would like, it's a live telecast, so the people would not like to see that darkness on your both side. Yes,
right.
Okay.
Interesting.
Just stabilize the mobile on the table.
Yep.
Yes, please.
Is that good?
Yes, now it's fine. Just leave that. Fine. So, Mr. Vora, you have heard the views of Dr. Anand, Dr. Banerjee, and Ms. Sawant, and they have expressed their views. Dr. Anand, mandatory marriage. Dr. Banerjee, optional or mandatory, both, whichever is compatible. But Ms. Sawant is in favor of marriage, but not that much. She says it is up to you what you want to do. Now, we would like to know your views on marriage, mandatory or optional. Mr. Kisale Vora, please.
Thank you. Very, very interesting take. And with these kind of knowledge people, when talk about marriage, I'm an artist, so I can only give my point of view more than my judgment on marriage without marriage relationship. I can only speak about how I feel. I'm very least experienced with Dr. Rajiv Anand, with probably a few thousand people. And every day, the understanding and he's a knowledge bank is actually, he's the Bible of this entire subject. So, well, I'll try and add what I feel. I feel as an artist that marriage is a word, relationship is another word. They are just simple events, and the perception that we create around it is what creates a situation. So I would say there's a lot of I use this word anthropomorphism in my art. Anthropomorphism is a human ability to give human attributes to inanimate objects. And we kind of create a line and we make a national anthem for it, and that's it's a human attribute to it, or to human attribute to having dogs' marriages and all that, because we want them to be like us. Because this is how we relate to your feelings. Having said so, anthropomorphism. So first, biggest problem is, when we speak about marriage or relationship, the perception that we have created when we project on people around us. So whether it is workable, it is not workable, whether it is the right thing to do, not right thing to do, that is a very superficial way for a common man to Common man has, okay, I'll jump to another subject. Common man lives, or I live in everything is an external frame of reference. Either it is romanticized or it is criticized for me. And I have created my perception around it. So for most of us, marriage comes with a rule book. That marriage means this. So that rule book is fake. It's fake. And most of us feel that how we see things, how we see marriage, how we see our partner, how we see relationship is true, but it's not true. It's a perception that we have created in our mind, like art. It's an absolute perception. So perception needs to be altered multiple times. So there has to be a solid and robust structure supporting the right perception, the balanced, the healthy perception. And that's when the psychological help walks in. Having said so some people I've heard saying through the marriage that how much I do for you, how much I do for you. So fundamentally, if they have to do so much for someone, they're already out of marriage. Unless and until they say, I enjoy doing every bit for you and I would like to do more for you. Okay. So the entire concept changes here. And all of a sudden, person starts seeing the entire effort which is put into a marriage as a beautiful experience. Or otherwise, if the perception is wrong, then the entire effort put in the marriage is seen as an investment, and it is an unpleasant experience. It's a tiring experience. So going back to anthropomorphism and introjection. So most of the people, they carry this entire perception with what they know what marriage is, what they know what freedom is. And you know how definitions can be misleading. The definition of freedom, say for some people, is wearing revealing clothes. If they're allowed to wear revealing clothes, that means it's freedom. For other people, that's not how it is. And I have lived in a countryside and I've lived in a metro. And all the marriages that we are talking about right now has another very strong aspect that in metro, people can adjust or not adjust, etc., etc. But in countryside, it is not that. It's about survival. It's about food. It's about living by yourself, seen in a wrong way. So there is altogether another aspect to marriage when we cross metros. Altogether another aspect that needs to be seen separately. Now I'm talking about when we talk about definition. So the definition of what freedom is so strongly misleading at times. For me, it's so strongly misleading for people like me. And taking care of someone, saying it's okay if you wrong, okay, is not freedom. Freedom is, this is how it is perceived, you know. Freedom is perceived as being well, as I said, how freedom is perceived before, and it's generally perceived as something where we don't have to be responsible for. And how Osho says that responsibility is an ability to respond. It does not mean that you're not free. It does not mean that you don't have choice you don't have freedom to choose. You have freedom to choose, but you have a beautiful ability to respond to a situation, respond to someone who's not well, respond to hold someone with you together. And that's an ability to respond. So definition of freedom is another problem. I'm coming from anthropomorphism. I'm coming from improjection, that we improject what we feel, we improject on other people, and we create a perception which is either toxic or it's beautiful. So now when we speak about whether marriage is good or a relationship is right or which is better, a person has a wrong perception of a relation of responsibility, that it's difficult for that person to be happy either in marriage or in a relationship or in a job or in friend circle, because it is their nature to see things wrongly. And how do they see it wrongly? It's not their fault, because the kind of romanticized, how they romanticized freedom is unhealthy. How the person has perceived freedom is unhealthy. And somewhere in the past, marriage did not mean no freedom, because I know in countryside where women rule the family. Husband goes and work. He's a robust man. He brings home survival. But one word from his wife, an entire family listens to it. And no man comes home and keeps celebrating how successful he is outside, how successful he is outside. And they generally speak about food. They generally speak about what's good in the house. Here, the perception is that you are admired and appreciated only outside the house. Inside the house is functional. Talking about functional, I have done a series called Second Chance, where humans have abilities to let go of beauty from anything that we attach function to. And talking about function again, marriage all of a sudden turns into function. Why? Because it's an external frame of reference. Marriage comes with a rule book. It's a perceived rule book. And the perceived rule book is what men and women retaliate towards. But does that rule book exist? No, it doesn't exist. It's same as a relationship without marriage. Marriage is just a word. The rule book does not exist. So rule book is an external frame of reference that we tend to take it up on ourselves, and this is how marriage should be because I believe so. No, I don't believe so. I have been made to believe so. So marriage is a rule book. No, it isn't a rule book. It has a beautiful feeling of responsibility and ability to respond. So that part I would hold very very strongly to. And then of course marriage, the how much I love you and how much I don't love you and how much I have to do for you, and I'm not gonna cook, or you cook, or you're not gonna cook, and I'm not gonna cook. And there's such a perceived idea, and people are feeling threatened with the rule book. So the second they get into marriage, they think that there's going to be a rule book which will be put on the table, and both will have to abide to that rule book. And that rule book is a problem. Otherwise, marriage goes, or relationship, they both are absolutely similar. These are just words. These are simply words. Marriage is a word. Relationship, I don't know what to say. A relationship without marriage, these are just simple words. And marriage is a celebration, okay, to mark the union of beautiful two people who have ability to be responsible. And that's what marriage is all about. And that's when the entire situation is like, I will do so much for you and you do so much for me, and I'm going to enjoy that, and I'll do more for you. And I'm going to enjoy that. You appreciate it or didn't appreciate, if that question comes, then I'm investing into any relationship. Investing is the wrong word. Enjoying that entire activity is the whole idea. So investing into anything, into bandagi, into prayer, into in a shrine, so that you get punya, so that I would get some fruit out of it. It kills the entire joy of bandagi. It kills the entire joy of bandagi. I tell my students that when you paint, don't paint with performance pressure, that eventually this painting should be good. Remain in a Buddhist way, like no mind meditation. Just be in activity right now and celebrate it. And once you celebrate it, the end result is definitely going to be great. And this is how I think I would see marriage. Everyday activity. Otherwise, it's going to be a stressful effort because one has to abide to a perceived rule book. And romanticizing freedom in an absolute wrong manner is quite a pandemic right now, you know, and it is very underlying, very deep, and very painful to see that how people misunderstand freedom. So when I'm talking about student freedom, and an enjoyable relationship like bandagi or pradhana. I know that when a child starts painting, child is so much in now and touching the paint, touching color, touching the paper, and he's not looking at an end result, has no idea about an end result. Then parents start collecting those papers. And one day when uncle comes home, who's an artist, and parents get all those pile of work and tell, beta jara painting leke aao, hamara bacha bhi painting karta hai, with all good intention, of course. And they show it to that man, and that man admires, that artist admires the child. From that day onwards, oh, how do I?
You have
I know.
switch on your video.
Yeah. How do I go back to my video? Wait. Sorry.
Okay.
Are you there?
Yeah.
Yeah. So then the child starts painting for that uncle to admire, and that's when the performance pressure starts. And all his life or her life, the child paints or does any activity for someone to admire. It filters into the area of marriage also, that if I'm going to do something for you, you have to admire. And the other partner says that I did so much for you and you don't appreciate and you don't admire. The idea is not to appreciate or admire. It's like bandgi. It's beautiful that I'm going to do it because I love you. I enjoy your company. I like to be with you. I'll do these such little beautiful things. It's like when we decor the house, when we create a beautiful decoration in the house, we don't say my house has to admire me. I look at it and I enjoy because I did it. And this is how two people have to get together. Then marriage remains just a word. And if we can't handle this and everything is misguided and an external frame of reference has been seen as this is how marriage, and there's a rule book, which is a perceived rule book that people are threatened with. Okay, and they don't understand responsibility means ability to respond to a situation beautifully, then everything is going to be warped perception. So this is exactly how I feel about marriage. That's it.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Vora, for giving your views. And Mr. Vora says that marriage is a very beautiful thing, but there is a difference between countryside and the metro. And he says it's a simple word, whether you call marriage or relationship. He says married, but there is a performance pressure. People wants admiration from the other partner, and that is where the pressure starts. So one should try to adjust in such a way that it should be done, whether you are in a relationship or marriage. But Mr. Vora has not given his stance whether he wants a mandatory marriage or optional marriage. Mr. Vora, can you just say either mandatory or optional? One word. Mr. Vora, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you, but I can't give you one word on that.
Okay. No issue. Okay, when I will come in the next round, then I will ask you. Now, thank you. Now, before I will ask the question to Dr. Rajiv Anand, in a lighter way, I will just tell one thing, Dr. Rajiv Anand. He appealed to everyone that if you want to become big, please go for marriage. I will give few names. We follow all of them. You also follow. Prime Minister, our Honorable Prime Minister, Mr. Modi, Rahul Gandhi, Jayalalitha, Yogi, Mamta Banerjee, Lata Mangeshkar, Salman Khan, etc., etc., etc. So this is in a lighter vein, just to tell to our all the viewers that decision is yours. It all depends. If you are happy with the marriage, fine, go with the marriage. Otherwise, you can become big even without marriage. When our Honorable Prime Minister is doing so well, and everybody knows, and about Rahul Gandhi and about Mamta Banerjee and Yogi and Lata Mangeshkar. Anyway, now my question to, not my question, the question is from Mr. Dulichand Kharel, the National President of Bharatiya Sarkar Sangh. He has asked one question. To stop hybridization in our culture, marriage must be mandatory at the age of girls 18 and boys 21. Otherwise, we should accept Western culture in entirety, but must stop that dual behavior and to show and eat ivory tusks. Do you agree, Dr. Rajiv Anand, with this statement or question?
Welcome this question, but age is not the only criteria for maturity. There are people who are 50-year-old emotionally not mature, and there are girls who are 18-year-old emotionally mature. And to go back to two things, Mr. Goel could take pains to gather the names of half a dozen people who are not married and yet they have risen in their personal career. And I could possibly take few thousand names and without much effort who are successful even after getting married. So marriage is something different than what appears to be the eyes and the face and the voice and the figure and the features. Most people, and that may include many of us sitting over here, may have a lopsided idea that one should enter marriage based on very, very superficial criteria. While marriage is much deeper. If a simple summary could be provided to anyone, whether you would like to live in a house or on the street, I'm sure the answer would be obvious enough. I would like to live in a house rather than on the street. Yes, to enter in a house, I would do research where, which house, which building, which builder, which plot, which construction, how long this house would last, whether this is a hut or this is a guest house or this is a hotel, this is a sound building, sound builder, so on and so forth. Marriage is something which is to last 50 years. Many of us do enter into it without much research. We'll end up with the unpleasant, bad, painful, bitter experiences. We pass it on to others, or we try to claim to others that this is what I have learned. You should not do that mistake. No. Most of us do not spend sufficient time before getting married, so we pay the price later on. So let us not be dismissive about the institution of marriage or the relations of the marriage. Let's look into how do we approach individually. What do we put in and what do we get out of it? The marriage is a must to bring the best out of us and to bring the best out of someone whom we love. Back to you, Mr. Lal.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Anand. I'm sure Mr. Dulichand got this reply. Now, one question has come from Advocate Avishi Dhaka. She is an advocate in Supreme Court, New Delhi. Today's topic is quite interesting, so people have sent some questions to me. This question I'm giving to Dr. Banerjee, Sunita Banerjee. When one should decide that they are mature enough to marry, when is the right time and how to decide? That is a very difficult, as you all have mentioned that one should be compatible, and you also mentioned that one should see. But when one can understand that I am now mature enough to marry? Please unmute. Please unmute.
So according to me, there is no such one age, okay? Because it depends on your level of maturity and your outlook to life. I mean, you can be 50 years old and still not, understand what this concept is of sharing, of giving. It's not only taking, it's giving. So if you feel that you are not made that way, then I don't think there's any age. Age doesn't come into it. But if you really want to enhance your life, because I believe it can enhance your life, provided you've got the right partner with you, okay? And to get the right partner is not only to get it, but you have to be the right partner too. And I think that these things can be ironed out along the way. So there is no age for it. It is when you are mentally prepared to share and you understand the importance and the benefits and how you feel. Life is a tough journey. If you have someone to share it along with you, it makes it much easier. I mean, in the lockdown, imagine for 2 years you're locked down with just nobody. It can be quite lonely. So it has so many advantages, but you have to understand for yourself. It's a very individual thing. It depends on your level of maturity.
Okay, thank you very much. And now my question goes to Ms. Sawant. This question is also from Advocate Avishi Dhaka. And the question is, what qualities do we inculcate inside us to get in marriage institution?
Good question. I would say the age-old virtues that all cultures and all civilizations really try to instill in their kids, beginning with, I think, humility, patience, and tolerance. Like I said, expectations are changing. And as I think Dr. Sunita did mention about women's emancipation also contributing to the lowered marriage rates, as women have gotten educated, as they've had more freedom, as they've had more opportunities, parallelly what has happened is their self-belief has increased, but also at the same time, their expectations of what a relationship is. They today expect themselves to be an equal in every way in the marital relationship. So parallelly, if your spouse, your partner is also at the same level, is also at the same wavelength, only then can both the wheels go together. So ensuring that you have the right patience, the right tolerance level, because whoever your partner is going to reflect some shortcomings, reflect some areas where he's not or she's not her best. And also a willingness to be humble, to be accepting, to not constantly seek approval and validation, but to have that self belief at all times that you're doing your best for yourself and for the relationship. Having this clarity and objectivity towards both yourself and towards your partner would, I would say, be the first quality that you would really inculcate in order to make sure that you have a marriage that is fairly smooth.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Sawant. Now my question goes to Mr. Vora. Mr. Vora, marriage, lots of hassles nowadays. Dowry, you mentioned about the countryside, dowry, domestic violence, very prevailing. And even for the legality in other countries, although not in India, but other countries, the domestic agreements have started for those who are living together. So why one should go for a marriage institution mandatorily if he or she can enter in a domestic agreement and live together without any family pressure, Saas, Bahu, Nand, etc., so many things what we have seen in our Indian society, and without any violence, domestic violence, without any dowry pressure, etc. What do you say about it, Mr. Vora?
So, as we spoke about the perception of the marriage and perception of the marriage, and as we spoke about the perception of a relationship, perception, it means that how I see it, and all that needs to be altered with a lot of intellectual hygiene, lot of thought hygiene, lot of yeah. So I'll hold on to that hygiene, and for that hygiene, person is, I am never ready, because there is in NLP there is a term called association and disassociation. How will I know that I'm mature? How will I know that I have arrived? How will I know that I'm ready to get into marriage and I'll be able to have children and I will be able to be a good father? How will I know? I perceive myself as a matured person. Where do we go from here? So it always needs a very strong support. Very strong support, either the religious organizations have to create, or otherwise previously it used to be joint family and elders used to create that. Now it has its own dysfunction. I mean, everything has its own dysfunction when it is not professionally rendered service. So I think all the marriages in the mature age for the marriage, and one has to go to a professional and say, I'm thinking of getting married. I'm thinking that and there is an assessment to that situation. And this is where it all should start, whether it's countryside or it is a metro, first part. Second part is, in countryside, the financial security and you know, all of a sudden after divorce, women wouldn't know what to do, where to go. And how about those situations? How are they going to be dealt with? So whatever conversation we are having right now is very metro-centric conversation about marriage and relationship and all that. So if we talk about all that, if we do not consider countryside, the large part of the world, okay, and only talk about metros, then our conversations have a lot of relevance and validity. If we see it on a global level, and then somewhere we are deviating from the real issues. And real issues are not only about compatibility, about women empowerment, about women being financially sound or not. It has got a lot to do with mental health, physical health, security, social aggression towards singled out women, you know, and how they have to deal with the entire situation, where to get their survival from, what to do with their children, and how are they going to be perceived in the society in a small little town where they live, okay, and all that. It includes beta hua ki beti hui. So there are so many multiple areas that needs to be looked into, and all that can only be done, as I said, with association, disassociation. Like if I have a little dark patch on my face, I'll never be able to see. It's only the other person will have to tell me there's something on your face. So that is disassociation from it. So we need help. We need a permanent and robust help for people to come to a conclusion that why I should marry right now. Okay, whether I'm matured enough to marry right now, and whether so it is not an individual decision. Now this always had spiritual help, and previously there was this entire structure that used to kind of support when ship used to get into dodgy water. And but now the perceptions are created about freedom which are so wrong that those support system is started decaying. In that case, I would still say the idea of marriage is absolutely beautiful and wonderful if few aspects are taken care of. One of them is the hygiene of understanding about marriage. It's so cluttered. It needs to be cleared, and it's need to be. And if it is done, it's a beautiful experience.
Okay.
And it should be, yes. It should be carried off.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Vora. Now, in the last round, I would like all of you to give your views and your message to the youth, because our program is watched mainly by the youth, and definitely this topic is concerned with the youth. We have played our inning, me and Dr. Rajivanand at least. So, starting from Dr. Rajivanand, your message to youth about our today's topic, marriage mandatory or optional?
So one thing very simple, that marriage is not what appears from distance superficially, just to draw something out of each other, just to have fun, or just to have a superficial pleasure out of differences at the physical level or physical attributes of man and woman. No. That's a very, very very glossy picture, very misleading, misdirecting picture. So request to all the youngsters, do not enter with that notion that this is going to be eternal pleasure-giving relationship for each other, from each other. No, it's far, far more. So girdle yourself, gather yourself sufficient knowledge, sufficient information. Take time to understand each other. Take time to know the reality of a very beautiful and very vital relationship called marriage. Spend as much as time before getting into. You would make a great marriage. I'm sure that every one of us, like I spent 9 years before getting married, and usually I don't talk anything about personal life, but I spent 9 years. I knew my wife for 9 years. We might have had our own share of differences, but we also had a great bonding, and to patch up those efforts much faster than if I wouldn't have had. If I have to marry again in my next birth, I would like to have more than 9 years rather than 9 months or 9 days, which is current trend these days. A few days and you get into. No. So back to you, Mr. Lal.
Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Anand. Now, my same thing, your message to the youth, Dr. Banerjee, please. Please unmute.
So, I would like to tell the youth that marriage can be a beautiful institution if looked at it correctly. But before looking at it, you got to look at yourself. What is it that you will bring to the table? And don't have any unrealistic expectation. It's a difficult institution. It's to be lived from day to day. Do you think you have the jigger to go through with it? As I said, it's not for the faint-hearted. You have to keep putting into it. You have to keep innovating. You just can't put it in one corner of your room. So if you are enthusiastic about it, if you want it to last, if you know the benefits of it, then yes, definitely get married. But don't be in a hurry just because society pushes you. Don't worry about the age factor only. Yes, it's important. It's the right person. So wait for the right person who you want to spend the rest of your life with. And I can assure you, if you find such a person, the journey is beautiful and you'll see the most amazing sunset.
Okay, thank you very much. Miss Sawant, please.
What I would like to tell the youth is to marry or not to marry is a deeply personal decision, and let your inner values be your guide. Do not get carried away by popular opinion, by trends, by what your friends are saying, doing, what famous personalities and celebrities are doing. Allow your needs, your personality, and your life view to guide you towards this decision, and you'll not go wrong.
Okay, thank you very much, Ms. Sawant. Mr. Vora, please.
I would say marriage is not an award, or it's not a reward, and there is no there shouldn't be any phobia of missing out. If it's so, one shouldn't get into marriage because of this, again, external frame of reference that if you're not married, then to fir matlab kya hai? So it shouldn't get into that situation. And it should not be pushed from an unhealthy space. But yes, with some help from elders, from knowledge people around, whatever accessible help, and one chooses on organically to get married, it is absolutely beautiful.
Okay.
And yes.
Okay,
and where there is no trouble, trouble is everywhere. Today we are going through Corona. Does it mean we leave the world?
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Vora. So viewers, we have seen today, all our experts are of the view the marriage is a very, very beautiful institution. But they also put a caveat. Please assess, see yourself, see the situation, but enter in the marriage institution. After assessing, do your research, but don't avoid entering in a very beautiful institutions called marriage. There are shortcomings, as our experts have mentioned, but their shortcomings are everywhere in the life. And if you make your mind, do it, but don't make it is under compulsion or somebody is saying. It is your own wish. You have to take your own decision. And if you feel that you are compatible now to enter in a wedlock, please go for the marriage. Otherwise, till the time when you feel that you are not suitable, wait, take your own time, and then enter. Thank you very much. And today's program has been live telecasted by me, by V4 News, V4 Stream, Karu News, Bharat Post News, Malnadu TV India, News Gaon Se, Samvad Sarokar News, as well as it was shown live on Facebook and YouTube. And in our endeavor to bring to you every day new topic in Media Conference with Lal Goel at 10:30 a.m. Tomorrow is a youth conclave on banking industry, Gyan Ki Pathshala, and the topic is on youth conclave on banking industry, and we are going to have 12 youth guests along with the chief guest. The chief guest is Mr. Ramnath Pradeep. He is the former chairman and managing director of Corporation Bank, Mumbai. So he will be giving the answers. These 12 youth will be asking questions to him about the banking industry in India. So please tune in tomorrow for Media Conference with Lal Goel at 10:30 a.m. Thank you very much, Dr. Rajiv Anand. Thank you very much, Dr. Sunita Banerjee. Thank you very much, Ms. Samindra Samant. And thank you very much, Mr. Kesale Vora. And thank you all the viewers for watching our show. And I'm sure today's program is very enlightening. And you have to take your own decision. As one of the panelists says, decision is yours. We are passing the expert opinions and their views to you. It's up to you whether you want to marry or not. कहते हैं हिंदी में, जिसने शादी की, जिसने, आई एम सॉरी, आई थिंक डॉक्टर राजीव आनंद कैन से, ये वो लड्डू है जिसने खाया वो पछताया और जिसने नहीं खाया वो पछताया. So basically it all depends on you how you will take it. Thank you very much.